preparation for our upcoming Conference of the Parties, which will take place in November. I will be joined by two other colleagues today, Isaac Utoda and Richard Gutierrez, and they will also present some of the slides we have prepared for you today. Let me start with some housekeeping notes and on regarding in particular how to pose questions during the information session. The Secretariat will open the floor for questions after every set of documents. We will be presenting mainly 2 sets of documents. And you may type also your questions in the chat box and send to everyone. Time permitting, we will open the floor for questions at the end of the session, and participants also may raise their hand and we will call on you. If you need any technical assistance, please put your message in the chat box and send it to the host or co-host. To help us make future webinars even better, we invite you to complete the short survey provided at the end of this session. So moving into the substance of this information session of today, this session will give an overview of the documents that will be considered under agenda item 4A on Mercury supply sources and trade of the COP-6 provisional agenda. These documents are on the implementation of decision MC5/2 on Mercury supply sources and trade, and also on the study on mercury compounds, including a presentation on the draft study that will be presented in the decision in response to decision MC5/3. So moving on to the tentative schedule of work for the 6th meeting of the Conference of the Parties. You see here the schedule as available also on our website. It is set out in information document 4. It provides you an overview of the expected work to be carried out by the COP when in session. You will see that the agenda item we are discussing today is this agenda item 4A. You see an arrow at the end of day 1 of the COP. This agenda item is expected to be open at day 1, time permitting, if the COP manages to end consideration of all preceding items on the agenda, with the possibility of spilling over to the next day for this agenda item to be opened by the COP. Now, regarding Article 3, which is the article of the convention that relates to supply sources and trade. It is a complex article with many paragraphs and covers many important, includes many important provisions under the convention. The first paragraphs from 1 to 12 address supply sources and trade in mercury and lay down measures on primary mercury mining, identification of stocks of mercury, excess mercury from the decommissioning of chloroalkali plants, and also mercury export and import. Article 3 also requires parties to take measures to control trade of mercury. And here we are speaking about elemental mercury with other parties as well as non-parties. And these measures require, the measures that are required in Article 3 reflect several principles, like that the mercury to be traded must not be from sources that are not allowed under the convention. There is the issue of consent of the importing country. that must be obtained before any export of mercury take place. And also trade with non-parties is allowed under certain conditions. Then the last paragraph under this article is paragraph 13, which relates to mercury compounds. And under this article, the COP is to evaluate whether the trade in specific mercury compounds compromises the objective of the convention, and the COP also has to consider whether specific compounds should be, by the listing in an additional annex, be made subject to the paragraphs 6 and 8 of the same article, which are the paragraphs that relate to the trade procedure, which currently only applies to elemental mercury. So this is a brief overview of this important article of the convention that covers many provisions that are important for the implementation of the convention. And I've gone through these elements because in our next slides, I will touch upon some of these elements that have been also included in the latest COP-5 decisions on this matter. So moving on to COP-5 precisely, we have two important decisions that were taken that are relevant also for how the COP-6 will consider this matter. So under decision MC5/2, parties are to report on all primary mercury mining activities, regardless of their nature of being formal, informal, or illegal. And this is what we have seen in the second short national reports that have come in after COP-5 and that have been reviewed by the Secretariat. And parties have responded to this call to report on all primary mercury mining activities. And we will hear more about it in a few slides. Then parties were also requested to provide information on exports without consent in their national reports. Again, the Secretariat has reviewed this information as submitted by parties in the national reports, and we will hear more about it in a few slides. Then parties were to provide also information on experiences and challenges faced in implementing Article 3, as well as activities in relation to the Bali Declaration on controlling illegal trade in mercury. The Secretariat was also requested to update in the existing guidance on stocks in the same decision MC5/2. The Secretariat was invited to or requested to develop guidance to assist parties in identifying, managing, and reducing mercury trade from primary mercury mining. And two last points, to support parties in better understanding the trade provisions and the use of the trade forms, which were adopted by COP, to allow parties to implement the trade procedure. And then finally, the Secretariat was requested to work on awareness-raising activities related to provisions of the Convention on allowed uses and sources of mercury. So this recap was put together to identify the key items that you will find in the working document on the agenda item on supply sources and trade. And the Secretariat during the COP will provide information about how these requests have been implemented and responded to in the intersessional period between COP-5 and COP-6. In addition, under the same agenda item 4A, the COP will also be invited to consider another document, another working document on the study of supply, production, trade, and use of mercury compounds. And this is in response to COP-5 decision 5/3. Now, moving on to the first working document. So these two working documents that I already mentioned to you are document 5/6, name titled Implementation of Decision MC5/2 on Mercury Supply Sources and Trade. And the second working document is 6/5 Add 1, which is the document on the study on the global supply, production, trade, and use of mercury compounds. These two working documents are also supplemented by additional information in 3 information documents, and you can find these already uploaded on our website along the other 2 working documents. So this is an overview of what are the relevant COP-6 documents under this agenda item. We will go through them now in the next few slides. So on the first working documents, this is what I will present, and then I'll hand over to my colleagues to present other parts of this presentation. So the first part is on document 6/5, which provides information on the implementation of decision MC5/2, and also present information from the second short national report, as I mentioned earlier, as well as relevant work carried out by the Implementation and Compliance Committee, which reviewed responses to the questions in the reporting format related to supply sources and trade. So this is also part of the information that you will see reflected in this document. The document also includes 2 annexes, the Annex 2, which include updates to the guidance on stocks adopted by COP1, and Annex 3, which contains updates to the guidance on the use of forms on import and export of mercury adopted at COP1. Now, moving on to the next slide, I will hand over to my colleague Richard to take you through the next couple of slides on primary mercury mining.
Thank you very much, Lara, and good day or good evening to everyone. My name is Richard Gutierrez. I'm the Program Officer for National Reporting. So the slide in front of you, I'll be presenting on the topic on primary mercury mining as it pertains to item 4A of the agenda. Now, the main focus for this particular section is highlighted in the first bullet, that 2 parties with important mercury deposits raised the issue of informal or illegal primary mercury mining in their territories. Now, I'd like to quickly sort of put that into context. These 2 parties, when you look at their national reports, one party reported that primary mercury mining production from their formal mines has been declining, almost to 0. And another party has also reported that they never issued any primary mercury mining license, but both acknowledged the presence of illegal primary mercury mining. And then lastly, the data on informal or illegal primary mercury mining has been raised as a challenge. You can see a lot more of these details at the following document highlighted in the slide in front of you, UNEP MC COP-6/15 on national reporting for more information on this. And then lastly, I call your attention on the last bullet. At its 7th meeting, the Implementation and Compliance Committee noted the matter and invited parties to submit information on experiences and challenges in implementing this part of the convention. Next slide, please. So what is the suggested action for the COP? So the COP may wish to invite parties that reported experiences and challenges faced in the implementation of paragraph 3, article 3 in primary mercury mining, to provide further information to the Secretariat with the view of sharing it with the ICC for further consideration. That's about it for me. I pass on the floor now to my colleague Lara to take you on to the next item. Thank you.
Thank you. Now moving on to another section of the same document relating to information on exports of mercury without consent. The Secretariat analysis of the second short national reports revealed that 4 parties reported information on exports that took place without consent. So lacking the requirement of consent set out in Article 3. 16 parties reported neither receiving consent nor relying on a general notification of consent for all exports of mercury, and did not provide any explanation for this. Parties also reported challenges in implementing Article 3, particularly owing to incomplete trade consent forms and uncertainty regarding the fulfillment of the requirement of consent to import of mercury as required under Article 3. Next slide, please. Further information provided by parties related to experiences and challenges faced in implementing Article 3, as well as the Bali Declaration on combating illegal trade. The Bali Declaration is a non-binding political declaration that was launched at the margins of COP-4, and several parties and signatories supported this document. So COP-5 requested parties also to provide information on what kind of activities had been undertaken in the context of the Bali Declaration. We, the Secretariat, received 8 submissions containing information on experiences and challenges in implementing Article 3 and the Bali Declaration. You have a list of countries here: Burkina Faso, Canada, Indonesia, Japan, Peru, Philippines, Senegal, and Togo provided information. These submissions are available on our website, and you can find a summary of the information submitted in document INF6. The main challenges identified by parties relate to illegal re-export of mercury, illegal transit, illegal trade of mercury for ASGM, for artisanal and small-scale gold mining, unknown origin of trade in mercury, and information on enforcement responses to illegal trade was provided. In addition to these specific submissions, 10 parties also raised illicit trafficking, illegal trade or smuggling of mercury in their second short national reports, as well as in previous reporting cycles, including the issue of illegal trade of mercury for use in ASGM. To note that the Implementation and Compliance Committee expressed concern regarding this issue of illegal trafficking, illegal trade, or smuggling, and decided to re-examine this matter at its next meeting after the COP-6. Moving on to the suggested action related to these points, the COP may wish to encourage parties to continue to share information with the Secretariat on experiences in preventing and combating illegal trade of mercury, including with respect to the use of trade forms. Also, the COP may wish to request the Secretariat to develop case studies on best practices in preventing and combating illegal trafficking, illegal trade or smuggling for consideration of COP-7. And the COP may also wish to request the Implementation Compliance Committee to do 2 things: to assess the reasons for which parties have challenges in implementing trade-related provisions and make recommendations to the COP as necessary, and also to initiate a dialogue with relevant international organizations, but also compliance bodies of other MEAs on their activities aimed at supporting parties in preventing and controlling illegal trade. And this will be something that will be done on the Minamata Implementation and Compliance Committee, but also will follow practice of other implementation compliance committees under other MEAs, including the Basel Convention Compliance Committee, who has a similar dialogue in place and to which the Minamata Convention has contributed to. Moving on, this is the last point of the draft decision related to this matter, and the COP may wish also to encourage other organizations like UNODC, the World Customs Organization, Interpol, the member organizations of the Interorganizational Program for the Sound Management of Chemicals, the Secretariat of the BRS Conventions, and other relevant global and regional enforcement networks to assist parties in preventing and combating illegal trade in mercury. Now, moving on to another matter on the same document, which relates to specific paragraphs of decision of the COP-5 decision/2, which invited the Secretariat in particular to support parties in better understanding trade provisions, to work on awareness-raising activities related to the provisions on allowed uses and sources of mercury, to broaden cooperation with the secretariats of other multilateral environmental agreements, and also to facilitate exchange of trade-related information received from parties. So the next couple of slides are just an overview of these efforts undertaken by the Secretariat during the intersessional period to respond to these requests. Moving on to the next slide, you can see the Minamata Online Season 5 is ongoing, but also past seasons where the Secretariat has developed information sessions on supply sources and trade. You see the links here on this page if you're interested. We also had a training on mercury added products and waste, again in 6 languages that are available on this website. The Secretariat developed Minamata tools training that also include modules of mercury sources and trade. And here you have the QR code to access the training, which was developed in collaboration with the United Nations System Staff College. And moving on, you will see some other resources developed by the Secretariat, fact sheet on mercury trade, and also coming soon, the Secretariat is collaborating with the World Customs Organizations to develop a training tailored for customs and trade officials that will be available on the WCO webpage and platform called Click, where customs officers can access training on different MEAs, for example. And also we will update the Green Customs Guide, which is a new UNEP guide for multilateral environmental agreements that is also targeted at customs officers with an updated chapter on the Minamata Convention. Moving on to the suggested action related to this matter of supporting parties in better understanding the trade-related provisions and awareness raising and broadening cooperation. The COP at COP-6 may also wish to request the Secretariat to continue to provide advice and conduct awareness raising and technical assistance activities to strengthen the capacity of parties to fulfill their trade-related obligations. Now I give the floor to my colleagues to continue this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lara. Let me walk you through Annex 2 of the document, which contains the updates to the guidance on stocks and sources. If you will recall, in Decision 5/2, the Secretariat was tasked to develop the supplemental guidance to elaborate on the types of action that could be taken to fulfill the continuing obligation to endeavor to identify stocks and sources. Now, how did we try to do and accomplish this task? First, we looked at the national reports and looked at the responses to question 3.3 related to this particular question. Then we looked at then we sought the information from those parties who responded yes to 3.3 and understand what kind of types of action they took to endeavor and identify stocks and sources. And then lastly, we circulated a draft of the supplemental guidance for comment until the second quarter of 2025. Now, one thing we also would like you to note is if I can call your attention to the bottom of the slide, the Implementation and Compliance Committee in their meeting noted that parties who solely rely on the information on their MIAs or the Minamata Convention initial assessments may need to consider more up-to-date sources of information, especially if the MIAs are pretty outdated. So with that, let me go to the next slide with you. And this is essentially INF 7, which is an expansion of what you will have in 6/5, which is essentially providing additional information on the types of action. So just to say, this provides additional information and elaborates some of the items, Particularly, you will note that in this document, you will find cases or examples of good practices, as well as calculation methods for inventories. This document was designed specifically for parties who have not yet undertaken their inventories, and this hopefully can become a useful tool for them. I end my presentation there, and I pass the floor on to Isako. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. So I'm now presenting the Annex 3 of the document 6/5, which is about the response to the decision MC 5/2 to develop a guidance in identifying, managing, and reducing mercury trade from primary mercury mining. And before I start this presentation, I would like to remind you that questions, if you have any questions, please put those in the chat. After my presentation, we will open up for Q&A. But our practice is that we look at the questions in the chat and address them. So if you have any questions from Lara's and Richard's presentation as well as mine, please put those in the chat so that we can handle these questions. So my presentation is about the managing the trade in mercury from primary mercury mining. The primary mercury mining is addressed in several ways in this convention. Firstly, as Richard presented, the parties have obligations to stop primary mercury mining in 15 years and not mine mercury from mines that did not exist at the point of the entry into force. So the primary mercury mining is addressed in itself, but additionally, there are several provisions to address primary mercury mining. Firstly, the use of primary the mercury from primary mines can only be used for mercury added products and mercury using processes, or the disposal of as mercury waste. So what it means is that primary mercury from primary mines cannot be used for ASGM. This is number one. And then the trade in mercury from primary mines is regulated by the Article 3's trade regulation procedures. The parties shall not export mercury only shall export mercury only if it's a written consent, prior written consent, and also for only for allowed uses. What are the allowed uses? So this is as I explained, the primary mine mercury can only be used for Article 4, Article 5, not for ASGM. So parties are not to export mercury for the primary mine mercury for the use in ASGM. So this provision is to be implemented using the trade consent forms. So in order to regulate the trade in primary mercury mining, we will need to make the best use of the trade consent forms. In the trade consent forms, the importing country need to specify the use of imported mercury, and the exporting country will judge whether that use is allowed for the primary mercury, mined mercury. So what we did was to propose a clarification in the trade consent form and its guidance that it is the responsibility of the exporting country and also importing country to identify whether it is the mercury from primary mines, and that primary mining may be from a legal activity or illegal activity. So this is what we have proposed in the Annex 3 to document 6/5. It contains the draft clarification in the guidance for using the trade consent forms. So the suggested action for the COP is to adopt the updated guidance on stocks that Richard has explained, and adopt the updates to the guidance on the use of trade forms and that I have explained. And the third bullet is a general request to Secretariat to report to the COP about the implementation of this decision, including what my colleagues explained. So I think I will stop here, and we open for question and answers. And I think we see a comment. Okay, so there's a comment in the chat box, but there's no question so far. So I will pause a little bit to wait for any question. So I see no question, and you can put your question while we present the next item, and if there's any time left, we may open up for oral questions. But first, I think I will move forward to the next document. Okay, so as I said, please don't hesitate to put questions on the okay. There's one question. Are these forms used in conjunction with the Basel Convention transit forms? And my response is no. This is the Minamata process and Basel process are different, and Mercury, the Article 3 trade consent forms is for Mercury trade in Mercury, primary elementary mercury that is not waste. So if it is waste, then the Basel Convention processes will apply. But if it is a commodity mercury, the trade consent form under Minamata Convention will apply. So I think I will move on to the next document, which is 6/5/1, and please don't be confused about the document number. 6/5 is the is about the intersessional process pursuant to COP-5 decision 5/2, and this one is a different document, which is a study of the global supply, production, trade, and use of mercury compounds, which the COP-5 requested the Secretariat to undertake in decision MC 5/3. So the first bullet is a background of this work. As mentioned earlier, Article 3 controls only, in terms of trade, Article 3 only controls trade in elemental mercury and not mercury compounds. But paragraph 13 of Article 3 says that the COP shall evaluate whether the trade in specific mercury compounds compromises the objective of the convention and consider whether specific mercury compounds should, by their listing in an additional annex, be made subject to paragraph 6 and 8 of Article 3, which is about the trade procedures. So with this paragraph in mind, COP-5 requested the Secretariat to initiate a study of supply, production, trade, and use of mercury compounds and present it to COP-6. The study was conducted with the voluntary contribution of Canada and Spain. Thank you for these parties. And we hired a consultant to undertake this study. Moving on to the next slide. This slide is, this slide is quite procedural. It explains that the draft study was posted on the website, and we received comments from these parties and organizations. So thank you for all these comments. And we finalized the study report, taking into account these comments. The next slide, please. So the scope of the study. The mercury compounds is defined. In fact, it is defined in two places. The mercury compounds is defined in Article 2, that any molecule that contains mercury and consisting of mercury and other elements are mercury compounds. But Article 3 has its own definition of mercury compounds, and in Article 3, the mercury compounds means these 6 substances: mercury 1 chloride, which is also called caramel, and oxide, sulfate, nitrate, cinnabar, and sulfide. And in fact, cinnabar and mercury 2 sulfide are essentially the same substance. Anyhow, so if we take the COP request only in letter, it may we may have limited the study to these 6 substances, but for information, we covered other compounds that are not listed in Article 3, but may be relevant in terms of the trade in mercury compounds. So this is the scope of the study. And the next slide, please. So the table of contents is shown at the right-hand side of this document. And what we did was we looked into the vendors of mercury compounds, and we looked at industrial processes that may produce the mercury compounds, and we looked at the use of mercury compounds, and we looked into the trade statistics and also potential trade, because these trade statistics on mercury compounds are very, very scarce. So the next slide, please. This is the first part of the conclusion of the study. Several mercury compounds are generated as a result of industrial processes, and there's no evidence cited in this study that these compounds be traded intentionally with the purpose of circumventing restriction of mercury trade. This is about these substances that are produced And I will mention the issue of CINABA later. And more than 100 companies worldwide produce a large range of mercury compounds, and there's significant international trade of less than 20 mercury compounds. But the public trade database do not identify specific mercury compounds, so there's quite a challenge in identifying trade in mercury compounds. The next slide is the this is very small, but we looked into a number of mercury compounds, including the 6 compounds listed in Article 3, and we looked into the production vendors and so on and so forth, and we tried to score the relevance of these substances in terms of the possibility of being traded to circumvent the Article 3 trade restrictions. So the next slide is the conclusion, a major conclusion. So the study concluded that 6 mercury compounds, as I mentioned, could be produced and traded for the purpose of circumventing restrictions on trade in elemental mercury. And the production of those compounds, as well as the recovery of elemental mercury from any of them, is relatively straightforward. So what this means is that these mercury compounds may be traded for the purpose of recovering elemental mercury that cannot be easily traded, i.e. circumventing the Article 3 trade restrictions. Also, the third point, the study cites recent evidence of CINABA trade being used under certain circumstances to circumvent mercury trade restriction. So I said that the intentionally produced mercury compounds, it seems that they are not traded to circumvent the trade restriction, but CINABA is not manufactured. CINABA is a natural mineral that are extracted. So CINABA may be traded to avoid the trade in mercury, the trade in mercury, because of the difficulty in trading mercury. CINABA may be traded in lieu of mercury. Furthermore, the study provides evidence of recent trade in mercury to amide chloride, and so on, for the purpose of producing mercury-added skin lightening products. So please note that under Article 4, the skin lightening products or other cosmetics containing mercury or mercury compounds is to be phased out. So manufacture of these cosmetics is to be phased out. But it seems that these mercury compounds are being traded that may enable an informal manufacture of cosmetics using mercury. So next slide is a suggested action. The COP may also review the study on the trade in mercury compounds and consider a decision as appropriate. And the document does not include a draft the decision because we cannot foresee the actual content of an action. As Secretariat, we cannot predetermine what it could be. To note is that the conflict of the parties is to evaluate whether these trade in specific mercury compounds compromise with the objectives of the convention, and also consider whether these should be under control by adopting a additional annex. However, the proposal for additional annex has not been submitted for COP-6. So if COP decides to control this, then there needs to be a process in which the additional annex is to be developed. And also please note that the use of mercury or mercury compounds in cosmetics is covered in agenda item 4B2, which is about products and processes. So we already made available the draft schedule of work as information document, and in that document there's a list of potential contact groups. One is the program work and budget, and another is the mercury products, and the third is the Article 3. And COP may wish to establish a contact group to consider the draft decisions, and it may be up to whether there is a conference room paper proposal submitted by parties at COP-6. So I think I will stop here and open for questions. So there's a question from Peter Maxson. Are you aware of any anecdotal evidence of mercuric oxide traded to get around the restrictions on mercury trade? And we, as the Secretariat, we do not have official information on this. This document 6/5 in paragraph 4, it explains the one. It mentions one JEF project on the addressing primary mercury mining in Mexico, and also there's a project in the pipeline to address mercury trade in Latin America. In some preparatory work, there may be some information about possible trade in mercury compounds, but we do not have a verified information about such trade. But of course, we would welcome any information in that regard. So I see another question. Illegal mercury for SGM is reported as a challenge under Article 3, but SGM is also regulated under Article 7. How is the Secretariat working to bridge these two articles so that supply side controls are directly tied to SGM demand reduction strategy? This is a very good point, and I think my colleague may supplement if they have any information, but to me, for Article 3, we have guidance, and we have trade forms and guidance, and the importing country will need to specify whether the imported mercury is to be used for SGM. At the same time, under Article 7, parties with SGM and the more than insignificant SGM are to develop and implement national action plans, and the Annex C to the convention says that the ASEAN is to include strategies for managing trade and preventing the diversion of mercury and mercury compounds from both foreign and domestic sources to use in artisanal small-scale gold mining and processing. So I think this is a challenge that we face, and also we support the parties to develop and implement the map. But if my colleague, any of my colleagues would like to jump in, please do.
Thank you. Maybe I can complement, and Richard can do the same. One of the tasks of the Secretariat is to make information available, information that is contained in trade forms submitted by parties as part of their national reports. So the information on implementation of Article 3 submitted by parties is available on our website, including, when made available, the actual trade forms that should provide information on quantities and purpose of exports of mercury to another party or non-party. As mentioned earlier, the information on the source and on the purpose should be provided in the form. So if mercury is from an allowed source under Article 3, and if traded for the purposes of ASGM, for example, should be information contained in the form, and if not ASGM, another purpose that is allowed. We're trying to provide more guidance on how parties can identify this link between the source and the allowed use of the traded mercury, knowing that ASGM is not allowed an allowed use for mercury from primary mercury mining. So this is part of the work the Secretariat is doing, also in its and it will be considered at COP-6 when it comes to trade of mercury from primary mercury mining, as presented earlier by Isaku. So this information is also available on our website in terms of what parties are reporting, what forms are they submitting to the Secretariat, or other information related to exports and of mercury, and also information submitted on challenges is available on our website, and can also be useful information for parties, but also for the COP, who will consider these challenges and take action as decided by the COP. And one possibility would be, as indicated earlier, to develop, for the Secretariat to develop case studies to better understand perhaps these flows and what has been the response in case of illicit trade or trade not compliant with the convention, so that more information is actually available and could be used for parties to address what we hear is a challenge to implementation of Article 3, which is illegal flows of mercury in several regions. Maybe I let Richard complement as needed, also in the context of NAPs. And we know that certain areas are particularly vulnerable and to this issue.
If I'm mispronouncing your name, for the very astute question that you raised. My answer, I'll try to be very brief. In relation to what Isaku said, as you know, in Annex C, there is the element that requires parties to develop strategies to manage trade and prevent diversion. So a key item that's coming up for COP-6 is the review of the implementation of Article 7, which covers essentially how the NAPs are being implemented. We have an ASGM information session tomorrow from 1 to 2:30, same time. I hope you can attend. We can discuss more. We'll be discussing more about the review of the implementation of Article 7. The Secretariat has developed updates or draft guidance for that. So that's an element that ties in both supply and demand side issues. Another critical point that I just also wanted to also add is the engagement of indigenous peoples, local communities, and other stakeholders, which is very vital in both the development, implementation, and review of national action plans. Again, there's also a document that the Secretariat has put forward for COP-6 on this. The engagement of affected groups are critical in addressing these issues, not just from one element of the supply chain, but when you look at a holistic approach in addressing the issues on the ground, especially in ASGM. So I invite you to take a look at that. That's also possible. That's another avenue of engagement, improved and increased ways of directly addressing this issue of illegal flows in ASGM. And lastly, I also would like to invite you to look at the national report documents. And then there's one particular action that hoping that COP-6 can look at and favorably look upon is the getting best practices information on how to report on illegal activities. As we've noted in the primary mercury mining discussion, there's a dearth of information on this. And unless we have good information coming in for the Implementation and Compliance Committee to understand and for the COP to understand, it'll be very difficult to sort of come up with something constructive. So please take a look at as well at the national reporting side, how information on these activities can help both ICC and COP in evaluating effective measures and effective action to address these legal flows. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And there's a question from Joshua about is it open to all stakeholders? If you mean tomorrow's ASGM session, I posted the link to the announcement for tomorrow's session. And Elena, thank you for the link to the recent report of the Environmental Investigation Agency. And we are aware of this, and there may be events at the by EIA at the COP-6. So I don't see any question in the chat. So I think we will move forward. I had forgotten that we have this right. So the next the slide you're seeing is the calendar on the COP-6, and we are we have we are now in doing doing the regional meetings. We did the Latin American Caribbean meeting last week, and we are doing the 3 sessions, and also we are going to have in October we are going to have a pre-COP online event week. I think we are going to post the schedule soon. We have thank you for submitting proposals. We have selected, and we now have the schedule to post. And if you wish to participate in COP-6, the deadline for registration is the 24th of October. There's a specific registration procedures the parties need to register through national focal points and so on. So please note that that you may need time on your end to register. So please note this deadline. And the COP will be held from the 3rd of November. Next slide is about the Minamata Online. So we are going to have the next one is ASGM, and the 30th of September, this is parties only. So I will stop here, and I don't see any comments. And I think we have a bit of time. So if there's any oral question, you may raise your hand. I will wait for 10 seconds. And I don't see hands.
Isaku?
Yes.
Can I just take the opportunity to also to just sort of elaborate a little bit on the indigenous peoples component in my response? I forgot to highlight one of our documents, and I'd like to take this opportunity while people are still online, if I may.
Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Isaku. As I mentioned earlier in my response to Lune's question, the importance of engaging stakeholders and rights holders, particularly indigenous peoples and local communities, as well as local communities, especially if there's ASGM that's occurring in their territories. One of the items that has been prepared for COP-6, although it's an information document, is a provisional guidance on the effective engagement of indigenous peoples as well as local communities in the development, implementation, and review of national action plans. So, so for those of you who are listening or attending, please take a look at that document as well, because it is very relevant to the national action plan process, and definitely, especially if the indigenous peoples and local communities have not been engaged in the national action plan development. This is an opportunity for that process to take place, and we hope that the provisional guidance can provide information for parties on how to effect that type of engagement to bring in these to bring indigenous communities in. So again, these are part and parcel of a buffet of tools, as you will, to address supply and demand issues and also to link them. So I end there. Thank you very much, and back to you, Isaku. Appreciate the extra time.
Thank you. There's a question about the observer registration. Lara, can you respond to how to register the COP in person as an association?
Yes, thank you. So it depends whether you already have been admitted as an observer to the COP during the past meetings of the COP, and there is a list of admitted NGOs and IGOs to the COP. I can share with you the link in the chat. If you have already been admitted, you can register to COP-6 without any further request to submit to the Secretariat prior to going on our website and registering as an organization who would like to attend the COP. If you're not listed as an observer organization to the COP, then you may follow the procedure to become an observer to the COP before registering to COP-6. I will also post in the chat where you can access the procedure and which documents your organization needs to submit to the Secretariat to obtain clearance from the Secretariat. Once cleared by the Secretariat, so when the Secretariat acknowledges that all the documentation required is valid, it is been shared, organizations can register for COP-6. However, the COP will be formally admitting the organizations only during the COP, and a list of organizations will be submitted to the COP in an INF, so that the COP can review and then admit those as observers to the COP. And so for the next COP-7, those organizations will not have to go through the same procedure again. So my answer, to be sure, depending on whether you already get admitted as observer, you can either register it right away, or if you're not admitted, you have to go through the procedure for admission. And I will share the links right now so that you can find all the steps to be taken to become an observer to the COP. Thank you.
Thank you, Lara. So I think we will close this session. Thank you very much for your participation. And since this is a very important agenda item, we look forward to the fruitful discussion on COP-6. And if any parties thinking about submitting a conference room paper, which only parties can submit to COP-6, please let us know as much as possible for us to be able to plan how we discuss how we plan the discussion at COP-6. And also, I think we will open keep this WebEx open for a couple of minutes so that yes, that are already possible the link. So I think it's okay. So thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you at COP-6. Thank you very much.